Okay. We'll give it another couple of minutes, but we do have a quorum.
Hi, folks.
Hello. Oh,
Everybody's so quiet. My
I
goodness.
know, it's kind of like, July is kind of a bit lethargic there, It's kind of like, whoa. The system slowed down
We need to have like a poker that we use, a virtual poker.
yes. So we're lucky as far as the weather, though. I mean, it hasn't been brutally hot as it has been in many parts of the country. And John Parsons. Okay, so with 6, I'll call the meeting to order and take attendance. Mark Doxer.
Here.
And John Parsons.
Here.
Nora Bucco.
Here.
Ron Assini.
Here.
John Sasso.
Here.
Michael Colton.
Here.
Oh, and John O'Neill here. So perfect attendance. That's what we love to see.
I have to leave very shortly, but sorry.
Okay. Well, maybe it'll be a short meeting. We'll see. It probably won't be that short, but hopefully it'll be relatively short. The untainted motion, I know people just got to see it today. That was unfortunate. But any untainted motion to accept the minutes of the June 8th meeting.
So moved.
So moved, John, and second.
I have some comments if I could share.
Sure.
So most importantly, at the very bottom of page 1, where it says feasibility study, next steps.
Yes.
We just need to correct our language here a little bit. So I think that the RAAC, the Reading ARPA Advisory Committee, recommended allocating, and then it can stay the same.
Okay, sure.
Just to be clear, ARPA is not actually granting anything, and RAC can't grant anything either.
Right. It was the select board that hadn't met by the time we met.
Yep.
Meeting. Okay. So.
And then one more change, sorry, the next Mark Doxer comment on page 2 on the top, where it says money for feasibility study.
Yes.
We should say must be committed by end of 2023. And then that's accurate.
Any other additions, corrections, or deletions? Seeing none, we'll take a vote on approval of the minutes as amended with the 2 amendments that were noted. Okay. Mark Doxer.
Yes.
John Parsons.
Yes.
Nora Bucco.
Yes.
Ron Assini.
Yes.
John Sasso.
Yes.
Michael Colton.
Yes.
And John O'Neill, yes. Okay. Moving right on, we had the communications plan, and there was also the data fields, but that was a separate item, but we'll do the communication plan first. And John Sasso, did you have?
Yeah, so I just actually it was this is probably a good segue, and I was looking back at the actions from the last meeting, much of which were related to communication. So I guess I just thought it would be important to get a quick feedback on the Friends and Family Day. That was one of our events that we defined as a activity for communication. I did have a chance to stop by the booth. Looks like we collected some additional signatures for, or I should say, additional email addresses. I certainly wasn't at the booth the whole time. Any other feedback that anybody wants to share on that particular activity?
I just stopped by myself, so I wouldn't, I don't have anything else, but
I was there until about noon time, I would say.
okay.
And there wasn't very much action when I was there at the booth itself, but I can't speak to beyond that. And I think Amy left around the same time as me.
I know Marilyn was there when I
Yeah,
was.
the Council
Yes,
of
Nora?
Aging, the Council of Aging came, the volunteers. It was very, very busy.
Oh, okay.
Nancy Zemlak had raffles, and it really drew a lot of children, adults, parents, grandparents. I thought it was very successful and smart. But there was a lot. I thought that John Parsons was there. I thought there was a lot of good questions and interaction and interest.
I was there. I was there basically the whole time except for an hour. I took off to man the Trails Committee booth, and actually there was much more interest in the Council on Aging than there was in Recalc, which was probably because Nancy Simlek put out the the raffles for the Council on Aging.
But I think that's understandable. I think, a lot of people still don't understand what Recalc is about, and it's less concrete than the Council on Aging's activities, which is good.
And John, I think that either Marilyn or Nancy said at the last council meeting that they collected, I didn't hear a number, but quite a few names, quite a few email addresses.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I did actually, I stopped by, I saw Nora in person, although I didn't recognize her. So
Introduced myself.
I'm Nora, I'm like, who? So that was kind of funny. Yeah, and I think that was, at least from our perspective, one of our objectives was to get some additional names of folks that we can communicate to. So this is just, again, part of the process. So I don't need to spend a lot of time. I just wanted to see if anybody had any other observations on that. So the next action from the communication perspective, and was an action from one of our meeting last time, was to draft a newsletter. I actually sent out an initial draft to Jean and Jenna and Amy. It's definitely a skeleton. It needs work. And I would like to spend a few minutes on that. But before I do, I just want to jump through some of the other items just to be prepped. I did, I think it's mentioned in the last email, I do actually, I can report that I've secured a student that would like to help with a video. So I will follow up with him, but I wanted to see with this group, kind of how best to proceed. Part of the thought of the idea of a video was, I think, kind of twofold. One was to kind of communicate about the senior center and the services in general, and then maybe kind of an undercurrent was to also highlight, some of the deficiencies that we're working on. So I'm not sure if we can actually accomplish, and thinking about this, I'm not sure we can actually accomplish both of those objectives without a little bit of balance and maybe, taking away from one side or the other. So I think the effort needs a little bit of work in terms of establishing an idea of what it should look like and what the things to focus on and how to present it. So what I would like to ask, and what I basically offered I know the family, is to come up with a time to meet, maybe with Jenna and Amy. Certainly, Jean, you're welcome as well, obviously, but anybody that wants to have a discussion around kind of planning for what it should be, really getting an idea of what we really want to accomplish from it. Assuming we still think it's a valuable activity, I guess that's the other point. So if somebody has any thoughts on that, let me know. But otherwise, I would just suggest that we set up a time to separately go through that and begin to put together kind of almost like a storyboard plan activity of what we want to look for.
Can I just second that, John? I was just going to say, you want a storyboard. And go through what are our objectives, then we want a storyboard that kind of lays out what are the pieces as we see them, almost scene by scene, if you will.
Yeah.
And just a quick thought on accomplishing both. Many of us, and I haven't sent them to you, John, but many of us took pictures of other senior centers that we visited. And maybe what we can do is make it aspirational to what we're looking for, as opposed to taking shots at it. So you follow what I'm saying? In other words, we can talk about here, here's the senior center, the beautiful building, limited in terms of the space we have available. The committee has been going out and has now reviewed 20 some odd other centers. Some of them are multi-generational, some of them are community, some of them are seniors only. And in the background, we can have some of the pictures of the multiple rooms and exercise centers and different activities going on. And then in the storyboard, the words can talk about, to meet the needs of our community, which is now 27% of the population of Reading, yada, yada, yada. These are some of the things that we've been looking at, and we're going to come back with a report in boom.
Well, he must have been reading my mind, Mark, because that's exactly.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, because I thought, it would be better to show pictures rather than to John, your point, it would be a difficult word-wise to, you don't want to like be tearing down necessarily, but actually showing the possibilities. That accomplishes the same thing, but I think in a visual way that will get the message across even stronger than just the mere words.
What is the length you're thinking about, John, for the video? Is it 2 minutes, 4 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have to deal with, attention span.
Yep.
Kind of 2 to 3 minutes is what I was thinking. But, the more I think about this, the more I'm wondering whether we might really have to separate this in, because there, at least in an earlier discussion, and perhaps more focus from COA as well, there was this desire to use the video as a communication tool to let folks know, hey, we have a senior center, we have programs, this is what it consists of. In addition to then, oh, by the way, we're also doing this Recalc thing. And the more I think about this, I almost think maybe it's really 2 separate videos or 2 separate communications. But I don't know. So I personally don't want to take, the full responsibility. I think we need to brainstorm exactly how we want to put this together. Mark, I like your outline in terms of, our objective, to share what we've been doing and what we've seen, and absolutely visuals are important, and, taking snapshots of what we have as comparatives. I mean, that's all really good. I just, and maybe that's what we focus on to start, but we can certainly talk about whether or not there's some other objectives, and if it folds into this work or if it's actually something separate.
So if I could just lob at that, I think that we need to stay focused on what we're trying to accomplish as Recalc, and that's this video we're putting together. Most certainly we need the COA involved with us. I think that they also have another need, and how to accomplish that, I think, is a separate task. But they need to be involved in this effort also. Not to get off our topic, but this is, we're talking about the work that we're doing. This is meant to communicate about the work that we're doing. We got to stay focused on that, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Well, I will take some additional notes on this. Jenna, can I communicate with you about trying to coordinate a follow-up discussion on the, perhaps a planning session with, his name's Nathan, by the way, Nathan, and I'm happy to sit in on that to start and help figure out how we move forward with this.
That sounds great.
Okay.
I'd like to be part of that too. Okay. To John.
Awesome, John.
Are we thinking of potentially interviewing some people who attend the senior center as well too, as just sort of a testimonial as part of it? Is that something we can do?
I think we need to, I think we need to kind of think about exactly what all the pieces of this might be. And
Yeah.
it could in fact be somebody being interviewed about, geez, yeah, I love the senior center. This is what we do, but boy, you know, these are some other things that I'd like to see. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's another way of, you know, conveying the need, I guess.
By way of quick background, when the schools were supporting, I think, the new high school, a video was put together, and it used what you talked about, Ron. It interviewed some folks around the community, and just snippets of comments, which was very useful. And that might be a good thing to look at as kind of background material to see what they did, what people like, what might work here, and how to do it. Our purpose is, this is part of an ongoing kind of communication, and maybe we decide this is kind of the first step, if you will. And maybe there's a second step that comes out after we've got the UMass study and our recommendations, and the feasibility study is starting. And maybe there's another one that takes place after the feasibility study is done with recommendations on how to take it forward to the community. But I'm happy to either come in and help brainstorm or stay clear, as people prefer.
Like I said,
Yeah.
I'm not taking the anybody that wants to be part of this. Certainly that's certainly fine. And I think brainstorming in general, taking all the ideas is a great way to start. And then to your point, we do need to lay out what it should look like. And I also want to give some good guidance to, this is a high school student who, is worried about the organization and aspects of this. So we need to make it easy for them to understand what we want them to do. But I think this person's actually going into video film production in his freshman year of college. So I think we'll get some good mileage out of his experience.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Jean, did you have an idea?
So the other.
Jean had a question.
I just wanted to
I'm
jump in
sorry.
for 1 second.
Oh, go ahead.
I would very much like to be involved as well. So just want to put out that out there. And also that we have resources at Town Hall that we generally defer to for outbound communications. So it'd be great to tie everyone together so that we're coordinating with the communications folks at Town Hall, Jane Wellman and Matt Cornelis. They've always been our clearinghouse for communications, just to make sure we have another set of eyes on this and it's going consistent with, I don't know, any of the rules that we need to think about as a government.
I'm not sure where that's applicable, actually, Jean.
Oh, no, you don't have to. I just,
No, the question, I just don't.
yeah, no, my thinking
My
is,
understanding of Matt's role, he's kind of, it was very protective of the city manager, and to kind of like try to, I don't know, to say this nicely, to be able to control things so that they're not something that the town might not look favorably upon, or something like that.
well, he definitely is the ombudsman. So he does, from the charter, it's meant to be separate, to have the ombudsman and the town manager be separate and distinct, so that anybody who has a concern can go to the ombudsman and speak freely, and then that they do the problem solving there. A lot of times the stuff comes my way because it's zoning or whatever. So that there is he does serve in that role. But I guess what I'm referring to is when we do things like press releases, we always run them by Jane Wellman, just to have her as the communications contact, be another set of eyes on things. And
I would have to agree. You always want to get someone who's a professional in communications to ensure things are being.
We always, in the role I'm in, always have, I work in the medical field. We have medical legal folks look over everything we put out. So I get it. Certainly, I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't be able to share what we have and get feedback on it.
yeah, it wouldn't be to censor anything or to eliminate content.
I
Just,
guess I was more responding to Matt's role as opposed to communications, because I totally agree with you as far as the expertise of a communications person. And in fact, I would like to see if they could possibly be helpful in
Yeah.
the future.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
to-
yes, they probably would be. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, good, thanks.
Okay. All right, so I'll send out a note on that and we'll try to get that moving. I'll check in with Nathan to see what his schedule is and see if we can get us all either together in person or on the line to start talking through this. And then, you know, to your point, anybody that has other ideas that you know, may want to share, by all means, please send them. I would say, you know, given what we've agreed to, send them to maybe Jenna and Amy, or at this point, so that we don't cross any other lines, but at least then let them collect them up and then we'll bring them to the meeting. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to share with folks was the draft of the newsletter. So one of the actions I had from the last meeting, I apologize, I'm going through 10 different screens here because I got so many different things open. Let's just see if I can open up the draft I put together.
John, is this a Recalc newsletter?
Yes. Yes. So at the last meeting, I agreed to take a stab at putting together newsletter number 2 for Recalc. So I did take a stab at it, and there's less information in it than I was hoping, to be honest with you. So give me a second. I'm going to share my screen. Where is it?
And this is an online newsletter, right?
So my perspective is that we would do the same thing that we did the last time with it, which was, I'm sorry, hold on. First of all, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so my perspective is we do the same thing with it as we did the last time, which is we post it online, we make it available electronically. I don't know if anybody printed out copies in either the senior center or the library, but you know, whatever means we have to make it available, that was the intent. You know, to have something. You know, we've been asking people to sign up to the new information on email, and so this would be something we would email people and say, hey, you know, come visit the site. We have our next newsletter up there describing where we are. You know, so that was kind of the perspective of the plan, was to establish, and a lot of the communities that we've reviewed that have done this sort of work have spent time, you know, putting together even just small little snippets of update information to the public so that they kind of know what's going on. So that again was the objective and the intent. And you know, certainly there are other means and mechanisms for us to use for communication, but this was the one I think we agreed would be a simple one to follow.
John, just a question. Was 16 the number? I thought we had more. That was, some reports weren't submitted.
Yeah, so let's walk through this if you don't mind. First of all, I guess I did find out that the stakeholder focus groups have not been held yet. Is that correct?
Oh, some of them have.
Some of them have. Okay.
Yeah, we had one focus group earlier this month, and then there are 3 more scheduled. We had one focus group in June, and then there are 3 more scheduled at the end of July. July 27th and 28th, I believe.
Okay.
How many people at the focus group, Gene? The first one?
The first one, we had 17 people. Now that was staff and UMass people as well. So if you backed out myself, 2 people from UMass. Well, it was a staff focus group, so no, I should be in there. But there were 2 people from UMass, so I'd say 15 people at the first one.
15 residents.
Well, no, we're talking about the focus group, the staff focus group.
Okay, so
That was, yeah, people from elder services and the police and fire and some of the folks from the coalition and our new medical mental health practitioner and those kinds of people that are kind of in the trenches with elder services.
So my thought, and again, these first two blocks here look a little bit sparse because I was hoping that we would have some sort of feedback. I'm assuming UMass is writing up summaries from these items. Is that correct? Or is supposed to be writing up summaries? I mean, we've obviously, many of us have attended these meetings, and certainly the forums anyhow.
Yeah, we had a call earlier with UMass, and they said they can get us something if we want it, but they're kind of in production mode trying to finalize the survey. So I don't know exactly what you like. Are you looking for key themes and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I maybe I was a bit wrong in my assumption, but you know, we've held 3 community forums. You know, obviously we have videos made of all 3 of them, but I guess I was under the impression that UMass was going to write, you know, at least some key summaries of you know, key points and things that occurred at these forums, and I was hoping that to use that as a, you know, kind of as a basis for communication. I mean, certainly, you know, I attended the first 2 and I watched the third session, so I could probably go in and do the same sort of thing. But I guess I was just assuming that they had done that kind of while it was fresh in their mind in some respects. So if they haven't done it as of now, the perspective would be, well, they'd have to do the same thing that I would, which is would have to go back and rewatch and reread these to see what, in fact, remind ourselves of what it was that occurred at these meetings. I mean, we might remember some very high level things, but, you know, where did we write this stuff? I mean, again, I work in the medical industry. The FDA says if you don't write it down, it didn't happen. So, so I just
They did take copious notes.
right. So it would be nice to have some summaries if possible, and if not, then I think the onus is back on us to go back and highlight what we think is important to communicate. Again, this purpose of this newsletter is to convey to the town and to our residents that we are working on this and we are making progress, and we're coming up with information, and we want to share the key points and, you know, things that we're learning. Hold on a second. I'm on the phone. We want to have that information in a form that we can share it. So I guess that's the question I would ask here, is that if we don't think we're going to get UMass to do that, then I think we need to kind of go back and just pull those items out ourselves.
John, you thinking of literally 3 to 4 bullet points kind of thing, as opposed to, you know, not a 2-page summary, but more like
No. I'm
highlights?
thinking, I honestly, I mean, you know, look at what I did for the benchmarking community section. I mean, 3-4 bullet points. You know, the purpose of this newsletter is not to provide a 3-page written report. No, I mean, that's certainly not my intent. I want to get people, people's, as we said earlier, people's attention is very short, and we want them to we want to convey that we're still working on this, and we want to convey key information. And if there are questions that people have, this also then can trigger that to occur. But beyond that, that's all I'm looking for.
So things like the feedback that we heard was like transportation was big.
Right.
Parking was another thing. Meals was another. Is that what you're thinking of? Those type bullets in there, John?
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of a good example. I left this blank for a reason. So,
Well, some of it was highlighted in our minutes, that
that's a good point. I could go back and look at the last couple sets of minutes and see, what sort of points we pulled out of there.
right. I am surprised too, though, that UMass wouldn't have had just, the common themes, and they just in a bullet.
Well, I mean, there's the comment of, we'd like to see something done sooner rather than later because our
the
population,
timing.
right, you know, that was one of those like, I see Ron laughing. I mean, I'm thinking of the quote, right? You know, I'm gonna be dead before this is done, right?
And I think it should start off with it's just the way UMass started off. UMass stating that in the 2017 study, it said that it's no longer, meets the needs of the community. Boom. I mean, it's kind of like, that's just, I don't think people, not everybody would necessarily know that, but I think that's a very important point. That's not something that, UMass is exploring now. That was already something that, they looked at thoroughly, and boom. And here are some of the things that why it's, a deficit.
Okay.
Why it no
All right,
longer needs the need.
I don't, I apologize. I don't necessarily want to force us to kind of pull through the details of
Oh
this.
yeah, I was just choosing that as an, as an example of something that, following the format that UMass used. Then wasn't it basically like 4 questions or something like that?
Yeah, they had the slide, they had the presentation slides where they asked questions like, what do you think about the community? They asked some very, motherhood and apple pie questions, and then they kind of dug into, the type of things in question.
Location was one.
Location was one of them. Yeah. Okay, let me, I'll take some time and try to go back for that one.
Just to
For
clarify,
John, I'll look back at the minutes, and if not, I'll watch these again and come
And-
up with some.
I can certainly ask UMass to provide us with their minutes. I know that because I was sitting next to Sierra, who was taking copious notes and typing them up. So I know that they have notes.
Even that I think would be helpful.
Yeah.
To get those notes,
Okay.
because I suspect that would be a lot easier than to Nora's point, having to rewatch all this stuff.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't. I don't want to do that either.
I thought they did a great job running meetings, by the way.
No, again, it's, the problem is it was a month or so ago, and
Yeah. It was a
I
month or so
have a
ago.
very short attention span on some of these things too. So, which is why I think we also wanted to write this out, was that, okay, what have we done over the last couple of months?
And share it. Gene, would the sessions recorded on Zoom?
No, they were RCTV.
Oh, okay, so we could
they're on
put
the
links.
website. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
on the RCT.
What I was
website.
thinking. Yep. Yeah, good idea.
Let's publish the links so people, if they want to see it. In fact, we maybe
I
put it on the Recalc site, put the links there, and then in this newsletter, you can just put the link to the right page on the town website.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's YouTube, right? For our
Yes.
CTV.
It is YouTube. Yeah, it is a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Okay. So the focus groups, just for the minute, we can keep this relatively short. We don't have details on this yet. Do you know do you remember, Gene, what the other ones? I know there was a list somewhere of the groups. Like one was residents, seniors. One, so do you remember what the other 3 groups were?
Yeah, there's 4 focus groups. So there is the one that we had with staff.
Yeah.
And then there is what they're calling a rising seniors focus group. And there's also the residents and volunteers. And then there's the stakeholders.
Okay. Do we need to what's the process for people being involved in this? Are these being selected somehow, or people?
Staff has
signing up?
been, staff has been working and providing lists and that kind of thing. Yep. And then there's going to be more outreach for the rising seniors. So there's going to be a Zoom meeting that is open to the larger pool of people that, again, we're calling rising seniors.
Okay. Okay.
And
All right.
This group with the resident leaders and volunteers. That's going to be on July 27th. The stakeholders also on July 27th. And those are going to be held at Town Hall. And that's an invitation only focus group program. And then the focus group number 4 is the Rising Seniors. That's going to be on over Zoom at 7 p.m. on July 26th. And that'll be publicized, and that can be an unlimited number of people.
Okay. All right. So maybe we should, well, that is, so that is something that'll be publicized. Okay, we can
Yep.
point to that too. Okay. All right. All right. So Nora and I will work on the community forum pieces. Again, just a couple bullets. And then I think the stakeholder focus groups, I just want to, again, communicate that this activity is in process and what it consists of. So let me answer John's question about benchmarking communities. So we had 24 centers on our list, actually. And so as of today, I think I have 15 or 16 survey sheets returned. So I have updated the listing, and I think I sent an update to Jean and Jenna today with the information. And so I did start just to pull out a few of the bullet points that I thought were relevant. You know, there are, of these ones that we looked at, there are 4 communities that are either in the process of building a new center or planning a new center. You know, there was some common feedback items, and then there were some other points. Now, these are just things that I pulled out, but you know, where most of the work has been done by you folks going out to these centers. I kind of shun my head on this, but are there other things that you think are relevant that you would like to add to those lists? We can certainly add a few more points here.
I kept on saying storage. I mean, that was something they said you can, you know, you're gonna, no matter what you put in there, it's not gonna be enough. You know, that was a common theme, and something about, well, being able to have more than one activity at a time.
Mhm.
Yeah, an office space for staff.
Privacy.
Yes, yeah. Private, well, for staff and for privacy, for one-on-one sessions with clients, but right.
Parking was another one.
Yeah.
Handicapped accessible, or is that a given nowadays? I mean,
That's a given.
Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, but how much? How much of it though, right? So with parking, do you allocate 10 spaces, 20 spaces? You know, that's something to be discussed.
I think it'd be good to be a little careful here. I think good to have enough different kinds of comments, but if we try to have too many here, it almost feels like we're trying to already answer all the questions, and invariably we'll have left something out that someone's going to take issue with. Might be better off kind of having some high level comments only to start. And the purpose of the other work is to kind of continue this and to keep.
Oh, Mark, you've been at this so long, you know all the things. All the little trapdoors that we get involved in.
Well, I'm a rising senior on.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Mark, I
I'm
actually,
a descending senior.
you had a really interesting comment from the Linfield folks, which was a larger center, you know, means more people and kind of more activities. And if you have a larger center with more people and more activities, they tend to attract more people and more active, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you have a smaller center, then you're just going to get small usage and small, but if you have a larger center with more things going on, then it's going to kind of self-generate its own interest in more people.
It creates buzz. Yeah.
Another great comment from that too, John, was that the comments from that center were they had a gorgeous entryway, reception desk. Behind that are some comfortable seats and things like that. And they set that up very much on purpose. The same point that you just made, that everyone's first impression makes a big difference. And with a positive first impression, people take a look and they respond well to it, and they want to do things there, and they encourage their friends to come. That same, more space and welcoming entry space were maybe a couple of the really big takeaways. But yeah, again, that was one location.
Yeah.
And they had space. Oh my God, do they have space? It's an old
Yeah,
school.
no, I actually know where that is. I drive by it quite often.
Yeah.
I actually like the fact that it's also one floor.
Yeah.
The way they set it up.
Yeah.
Again, so to your point, Mark, I was not intending for this to be a illuminated list of everything we've figured out, but just some kind of, salient points that we thought were relevant to share.
Handful rule.
I did actually download, so Winchester has a very well-established, organized set of folks. They have a trust for the building. They have a organization. They have committees that run, building maintenance, committees for education. I mean, it's really very, very. I hate to use the word bureaucratic, but they
Organized.
it's very organized, and they generate an annual report, which I did pull down as well. And they had some really interesting points about establishing the trust for the building to fund maintenance and things like that, and obtaining grants for program. They actually have grants that they obtained for evening and weekend programming. So there's a whole bunch of things that I thought were relevant. Now, again, they're not necessarily relevant to the building in general, but certainly in terms of how some of these communities have adopted and addressed these issues. So I would say keep, I was asking you guys, because most of you guys have been to the centers now, and if there are other salient points that you think would be relevant to add. I tried to pull things out from the comments and in general, which I thought were good to point out, but I think it was just important to share to folks that we've been doing our homework.
Right. In that regard, are there any outstanding that may be coming in later? I mean, I'm a little surprised at the number.
So there's one other center that I believe was physically done, but I haven't got a report. And then other than that, there's one or two folks that have, 2 or 3 other centers that I just have no information on. And I reached out to them directly. I don't want to shame anybody, because I'm also one of those people. I had Wakefield on my list, and I've been stuck behind my desk for the past month and a half. So I have not gotten out to Wakefield. But there are a few other folks that I've reached out to and asked about status on some of the other centers. Certainly, I have to say, we have 16 centers. I'm not necessarily saying if we don't get all 22 or 24, it's not a big issue. I think we have enough. I think we have enough information to kind of start making some good discerning points about. I mean, certainly any more that we get is fine. But at this point, I'll continue to reach out and try to get feedback on the few folks that are still outstanding.
Did anybody else have trouble downloading? You had sent it to Kevin. And Kevin sent it out, but it came to me as like a PDF thing, which instead of an Excel format, it was all chopped up. It wasn't readable in the format that I got.
So I just sent out an update Excel file to Jean and Jenna. I see no reason why we can't share. If we can, again, I just haven't sent it out to everybody because I'd rather let them.
No, that's fine. But it's just saying yes.
I might have actually put it in PDF for another reason, but I don't actually at this point recall. But I think I only sent out the Excel file today. So I would say by all means, please go ahead and share that with the rest of the team. Jean, you've been waiting patiently. I'm sorry, you have your hand up.
Yeah. So one thing that I was kind of showing this to the folks at UMass, and they wondered if maybe under the community survey, you could also make a note that a postcard mailing would be coming in September. I don't know if that's on there.
Yeah, I actually, I was gonna ask about so, I was wondering, let me just before I do that, is there any other comments or questions anybody has on the benchmarking community section? Okay, I'll clean this up. So Jean, I was curious on the community survey, how close is UMass to the, to a final survey?
Oh, they're pretty close.
So the intent is for them to have it available first week in September?
They're planning to mail it right after Labor Day. Yep.
Okay, and so we
So they're
had,
gonna mail the postcard with the QR code
right,
to
so
households. I mean, to residents. We have the town clerk has a database of town residents. I'm assuming it's 18 and over. And UMass wanted me to make sure that the committee was okay with 18 and residents 18 and over. They have some concerns if it dips into a younger pool. I don't know what they are, but I don't know for a fact that that's how the database is organized, but I wanted to make sure that this group was aware that that's kind of what we're pointing to.
I certainly think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Gene, is it a household mailing that's
No,
gonna happen?
residents.
So if there are 3 people in my house that are residents, there'll be 3 postcards.
Yes. Because we talked about how there was concern early on that if it just comes to the household, not everybody that lives in the household would necessarily get a chance to respond to it.
What was the date again? September?
Yes, right after Labor Day. I don't have his exact date, but sometime after Labor Day.
And sorry for being in the detail. Is there going to be a QR code on the postcard?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, QR code. And then there'll be paper surveys that will be available at the Pleasant Street Center, just like how we do the pleasantries, have the van driver do that. And there'll be a phone option, as we discussed.
Right.
Yep, senior center, maybe the post office, town hall will have the paper copies.
Could I make just a quick suggestion also? If we're going to be going to the expense and structure of, 3 postcards for 3.
It's baked into the cost of the consultant contract.
Actually,
We're not paying for anything.
Yep, sorry, I was less concerned with the cost, more concerned with the messaging, so that people understand that we're asking each resident to respond. So if there are 3 residents in the household, we're asking for 3 people to respond. Just to, in other words,
Yeah.
I get stuff here sometimes and we all assume that, either, somebody else got it in that case and they say, okay, so one of us is going to do it. Don't worry about it. And that's not our point. Our
Yeah.
point is to get everybody to do it.
Yeah.
I'm again, I hate making assumptions. I'm assuming we're gonna see that postcard before we send it out. We're gonna have a process for reviewing it. Is that on the plan? Because that's one of the
Wasn't-
items.
I wasn't planning that, but
Is it just gonna be a simple postcard? So I mean, we because I had
I haven't even seen it myself, so I don't know.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
we did it with the Council on Aging. There was a postcard and it was pretty simple.
Right. No, and I think that's all we want it to be, is simple. But to Mark's point, every time we touch a person, a resident, we should make sure if there's a particular message, we want to make sure it gets clear.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
fine.
what does the group think is the best way to do this so that everybody's okay with it? The postcard. Email it around and. I mean,
We'll put the instruction on the postcard that, like what he said, each resident,
yeah,
yeah,
but I'm saying if we have a draft postcard, July 18th, is everyone, if I just email it around and if anybody has a comment, they can get back to me? I mean, I told UMass we'd have everything, comments, everything to them by August 1st. Final survey, postcard, everything. So, because they got to get everything to the printers.
But I think if some people want to see it, I think it could be, the turnaround should be very quick, because I don't really have an issue with the postcard, because it's the survey. They're just pointing people to the survey, so.
Right.
Postcard to me is.
I think if we did what we did the last, yeah, send it out and let people provide you specific feedback.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, give it a deadline.
Okay.
absolutely. Because I don't,
Well, you've all seen the survey
yeah,
and you've all given comments on the survey, so that should be good. But final format, sometimes I don't want it to go out and someone goes, oh geez, I didn't realize it was gonna be a something,
just let me circle back on those two things. So I absolutely agree with Mark, send it out, ask people for feedback by a certain date, and whatever you get, and if somebody doesn't respond by then, so be it. Just quickly, before I forget though, so one of the actions that we had from last time was for folks to take the survey and provide feedback. Did everybody have an opportunity to do that?
Yep.
I
I
did.
did.
I didn't see
Took
it.
about 8 minutes, literally, to go through it. It was pretty quick.
Yeah. Did Gene, do you know if they made any additional adjustments based on the feedback that we gave them?
I haven't seen it yet, so I don't, I'm sorry.
Okay. Would John, I guess I'd ask you a question. This is more a little bit off the communication topic, but while we're on the survey, can we get a copy of what that final one's going to look like, just so that we have it at some point?
You asking me?
Yeah, well, yeah. Do you think we can get a copy? Because I know folks did have feedback on the survey, and I was just curious if they made any final changes as a result of the feedback.
Sorry, your audio is a little difficult.
I think it's John Parsons is, if he goes on mute, I think he's causing the feedback. John, can you go on, John Parsons, can you go on mute? Yeah,
Well, he has his hand up.
there you go.
Can you hear me better now?
Yep.
All right, sorry about that.
Okay, so you're saying, what version did you want me to circulate?
When you, I was just wondering, at some point, can we get the final version of the survey that UMass plans to?
Yeah, that's what I was just referring to, that what I will do is the final version, before it goes to print version of the survey, and the final, before it goes to print version of the postcard, I will circulate and say I need everything back no later than July 30th.
Okay.
Or July 28th.
Okay. All right, great. All right, John Parsons, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to make a comment back there a little bit when we were talking about the QR code. I played bridge today at the senior center. There were 16 people. One woman has neither a computer nor an iPhone. And I'll bet you there are 2 people out of those 16 that would have the faintest idea what to do with a QR code. Just a comment.
That's true, John. And that's why they have paper versions, right, at the senior center and town hall and things like that, right?
Is there going to be enough on the postcard that would really spur them to say, gee, I've got to go do that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again,
I thought on the postcard there'd be a telephone number that you can call into as well, isn't there?
I think the onus is on us as a committee, but also, in partnership with Elder Services, that if someone comes into the senior center when the survey is open, the first question they should ask is, hey, have you filled out the survey?
Yeah.
So I think we're going to have to, yes, the postcard will make people aware, but to your point, John, they may not fully know what in fact they need to do, but hopefully there'll be enough information that they know, oh, okay, I can make a phone call, or, oh, I can stop by the library or the senior center. But, hopefully folks will take that seriously. I mean, we can't force people to fill out surveys, obviously, but we want to get as many as we can. So, but you are right. Mark, go ahead.
Thanks, John. Maybe a data point in supporting what John Parsons just said also. The ARPA committee, the RAC, sent out a survey, and we had QR codes, and we pushed it out through various channels, including the schools, and was available at the senior center and the library and town hall and all sorts of other things. The vast majority of the people who filled it out were kind of 30 to 50 in terms of age, or 20 to 50, even more specifically. So the QR code, I think if John, if your point is to say, hey, make sure that the messaging says, we want you to fill out this survey. Here are some ways that you can do it. One option is a QR code. And some people are like, what? And another is you can go to the senior center. And another is you can get it online with this link. And another is here's a phone number if you don't have access. I think, John Parsons, if that's what you were suggesting, to make it clear that it isn't just about a QR code, it's about different ways to fill it out. And there are choices for people, whatever technology or preference they have.
So the telephone call, if they kept the open-ended questions in, which I had a problem with, that could be problematic.
Well, we'll certainly get some interesting feedback on this, given the approach, as to whether or not, this type of a survey can be effectively managed under these circumstances with the elder population as well, and what their intention is about how they want to fill out these surveys. So that'll give us some indication as well. So I want to just quickly go through this because the last thing is, so I did add a set of bullet points about the, I call it the opera funding, even though it's a different committee, but I guess, Mark, I used the correct wording here, that the select board authorized the 600K and to support these additional kind of activities and elder services. So I just thought it was important to let folks know that we're focusing on improving in general the activities and actions from an elder services perspective. And then the last thing, so next steps really is, now obviously we have the community service. So the next steps will be to take the survey. We are going to continue to collect, and this is kind of the same sort of words that from before, continue to collect and analyze data, return to the community with our recommendations. And then there was an interesting comment, I think it was Jean, that we were going back and forth quickly when I sent the feedback on this newsletter. So what actually happens now that we've actually authorized some money from opera for a feasibility study? I'm assuming we'd still go to town meeting with communication about our recommendation at that point, even though funding has been authorized elsewhere. Is that, how did that change our approach, if at all?
Why would we go to
We don't
town
have to answer the question now. We kind of brought it up as we were thinking about this.
Can I suggest that's a great discussion for this group to have in terms of kind of the order of operations, right? So there'll be the completion of the benchmarking here. There'll be the completion of the survey. We talked about the timing of the recommendations of the survey not being in time for town meeting.
Right.
Maybe it could be an overview, but kind of the detailed stuff, which would likely become a charge for a feasibility study, would be kind of December-ish in terms of time frame. So that's after town meeting.
Yeah.
Recalc needs to report to the select board,
right,
in terms of kind of what the thoughts are. So the funding mechanism of the feasibility study is now taken care of. That's here. I think we should talk a little bit just about the process, what it is that we're going to bring back to the select board, what we can share with town meeting in November, what we're going to be able to share hopefully in April. I think it's worth talking about that and going through the timelines just to make sure we're all kind of having the same vision of that.
Okay. John Parsons, you want to chime in?
Yeah, just a quick question back on the postcard. I'm sorry to be going backwards. I'm asking Jean, would there be like extra copies of that available? And where I'm going with that thinking, like if I'm at the Pleasant Street Center at an event and I want to, or I'm at my, the coffee hour at my church, and I say to people, hey, did you do the survey when you got the postcard? And they look at me and say, what postcard? That I would have a copy. I could say, hey, this one here. There will be available extra ones.
Absolutely.
That's the type of thing that I intend to do when this thing all breaks.
I mean, it may even be worth printing up, 11 by 17 kind of posters and making them available at various places. But to your point, having someone that can show their neighbors, friends, how to use the QR code, I think that would be very, very helpful. And maybe it's something to program in at the Pleasant Street Center to have a topic about this and invite people to come and make sure they're aware of what's going on and participating in the survey.
I think what John was saying, which I thought was relevant, we when we did the last survey, when we did the last postcard, I think we had asked the question at one point, hey, did anybody print up any extras like to have at the table? And the answer was no, we didn't. Well, I think the answer is we should, if it isn't unreasonable, we should print out some extra copies of those postcards just to have with us.
Good idea.
Whether they be at the senior center or the Pleasant Street Center, or give out to different people, so that if we meet somebody that is not aware of it, to John's point, we can share that postcard, which should have enough information on there that they can take action to complete the survey. So yeah, if we can ask UMass, if there's a database of whatever 16,000 residents over the age of 18, we should go ahead and produce, print 17,000 or whatever. I suspect at that point, the delta cost for an additional 1,000 is probably pretty small. Nora, go ahead.
Yeah, can we, instead of the postcard, can we actually distribute the survey ourselves? Like I run into a lot of senior groups during my week. Can I actually give out the survey myself?
Well, you'll certainly be able to email out a QR code and or the link. In terms of the physical survey,
yeah, because I'm going to meet people that may not be, QR code literate.
I don't know what the plan is for how many physical copies were intended to be printed up and whether one can take a set, but I don't see a reason why that couldn't be done. I would, if we want to program that in, then we should, I don't know who, Jean, who was actually going to be responsible for physically printing surveys? Was that going to be the town or UMass?
The whole survey we contracted out to UMass. So
okay.
That's in their scope.
Okay. So then we'll just need to come up with an idea of how many we want them to print out.
Yeah, but I do remember she's saying that physical copies is time consuming.
Limited.
Yes.
You didn't really want to encourage it.
Yeah, no, I do remember that being said. So
that's going to be the factor in how, whether or not we're going to be able to go back to the select board in November, which I think we said was the goal. If there's a lot of paper surveys.
Okay, so then we'll focus on the postcard and the instruction, and
that'd be easier. Yeah, and maybe there's a way to program a lunch where we can walk people through it and again entice them with a lunch and discussion. We're talking about lunch and learn kind of programs and focus it around this so that we can get people to do the survey through the postcard.
okay.
Be interesting maybe to get some high school students to help people fill it out, right?
Yeah.
Just talking about that multi-generational get together.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Some people would be interested in doing that, and they get their volunteer hours in at the same time.
Just a quick question. I'm thinking that these are all important in terms of thinking about it, but UMass probably would have some guidance on what in the past has worked for them and in terms of how that happens. And Nora, I like your point, but also we do need to make sure people focus on doing it online. And then Ron, to your point, I'm wondering if they can program it onto an iPad, for example, as a form, and those high school students or whomever could then, work with the seniors going through the survey, but be able to bring it in directly instead of having to worry about transcribing it. And I know that's a little too detailed, but I think if we think of it up front, we might have some ways where it's easy for people to fill it out with the help of someone, but it goes right into the system and it doesn't have to be hand reviewed and read.
What about at the Fall Street Fair, having iPads and volunteers helping?
Oh,
Good idea.
Good timing. Great timing.
that's a great idea. You could actually have somebody sit there and interview somebody with the iPad.
Yep.
And say, Hey, can I interview you for the town survey on the new
I
potential?
just think about all those people that sit outside of Market Basket asking people for surveys as well too. I wonder if there's an opportunity there as well, right?
Yeah,
I'm not giving up 9 minutes coming out of Market Basket.
yeah. They're a lot easier for them to give you a donation.
Well, you give them a free koozie or something like that, right? So you gotta give them something free.
I'd be like, yeah, would you contribute? I bet you could get people to contribute to a new senior center versus 9 minutes of a survey.
Are we wrapping up the discussion on this?
Yeah. Are there any other comments on the newsletter at this point?
Good start. Really good, John.
Good.
Yes, good job.
All right. I
John,
will,
just can I ask one quick thing? Go back down there just for a second. I thought okay, stop. So recommendation to select board and then town meeting for funding. It's not actually for funding of the study because the funding is
Right.
established, right? So it's, and then town meeting for scope or plan or timeline, something other than funding.
I would think, well, okay.
okay, something like that. Okay, well, I'll take a stab at updating this. Like I said, it's not too far off. This has been very helpful. I'll do a little bit more. Nora, feel free to shoot me any thoughts on this first piece. I'll
Okay.
do some work as well, and then I'll send this back out to Jean and Jenna. Okay, I think I've taken enough time. I'll hand this back to John.
Okay, thank you. Mark, do you think you want to talk about the timeline now? Would this be an appropriate time? Would you want to?
So we probably should set that as a future agenda item, just as a suggestion. We didn't really explicitly call it out here, and it might be worth everybody thinking about it in advance. Just kind of, you know, what's kind of the expectation? What are we hoping to do? I think it should range everywhere from what Recalc is planning to deliver on the various dates, what those inputs are going to be. For example, benchmarking study, UMass information, all those different pieces. Then kind of the charge for the feasibility study. We can talk about expectations for timing in terms of getting it back. You know, what seems a reasonable window. And Jean, I'm sure you'll have a lot of input and thoughts on what that might be and how that might work. And then what that means. We also can talk about, as part of that discussion, the other land discussions going on in town. For example, Simon's Way, Oakland Road, any other things. The town also put out an RFP that we talked about a few meetings ago. That the results of that is something we ought to put onto a future agenda. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping into future agenda a lot here, John, in response to your comment. I think there are a lot of things that we need to talk about that we should put on an agenda so that we can do that. I think, Jean, do you remember when is the RFP coming back? End of July? I think it might be.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think that's right. So for, you know, an August meeting, I think we'll have some stuff to talk about potentially too.
What was the last thing you had talked about, Mark, as far as the future agenda item?
So the land in terms of Simon's Way, Oakland Road.
At that.
Okay, so the last piece probably was the RFP that the town issued for short-term or longer-term space, and asking if there are people that want to make an offer to the town for space for senior activities. And not meant to preclude anything else, but I'm just thinking that can be part of the discussion, and that will have some impacts on our timeline potentially, or not.
And most important part of our timeline is a recommendation as to a senior center versus community center, because
Yeah. And I think too, John, how much space we're thinking about, right? I mean, there's a difference between 5,000 and 15,000 and 50,000, just in broad swipes here. And for a feasibility study, I think we'll give a little bit of guidance, but obviously that group will come back to us with more specifics. You want to do, you know, A, B, C, D, and A and E, that's going to take this much space.
Right. That part I was actually been doing some thinking about, and that's it's a challenge. I may have some ideas of how maybe to address it, and the surveys may be helpful in that regard. Well, the surveys will be helpful in that regard. All right, since we had nothing else up,
Jean's got her hand up.
I just checked the website. July 11th, Monday is when the responses are due to the RFP for space.
Okay, so by our next meeting, we'll certainly have an update.
Yep. And also one other thing, the charge that was originally written indicates that the recalc sunsets November 30th.
Okay, so I'll take that as an action item. But probably we should have at our next meeting, maybe what we do is we work on that timeline and then share that timeline with the select board and say, therefore, we would ask you to move the sunset date to a future date because of, you know, these things that we're going to accomplish.
Okay. All right, anything else? Any other business? Do you have your hand? Oh, no, okay. Then next meeting. And we're able to get by with just one for July. Is that acceptable to do the same thing for August, or what's the will of the group?
I think one would work fine, maybe in the first half of August, if that makes sense.
I see people nodding their heads. Okay, so do we have a suggested date in August?
I was just thinking that we should do it early in August because we are going to have a couple things that'll come off the end of August. Then we'll be planning for the survey and other activities. So it may not be a bad idea to circle back on where we are. So either the 3rd or the 10th, which is the first 2 Wednesdays, pick either of those dates I would suggest, but you know, whatever other people think may be on their plate for vacations or whatnot.
Yeah, the 10th works better for me. I'm on vacation the first week
Yeah.
in August.
10th works well for me also.
As far as the 10th goes for me, I'll be in a hotel in Salisbury, Maryland on my way to Chapel Hill. I have never successfully got on Zoom in my on my phone, but who knows? Maybe I can this time.
I'd be willing to work with you on that, John.
We'll send you a QR code, John.
We'll send you a high school student.
Right, better, yes.
Actually, if I could bring my junior high granddaughter, she could do it.
Oh,
There you go.
definitely. She'll put you on TikTok.
So we're going with August 10th? Is that what I?
Works for me.
And if you don't see me, you'll know why.
And okay, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before we do that, John, can I suggest, John Parsons, one of the options on Zoom also is just to use your phone. There's a phone number. There's a 1-button click that's part of the invitation. And you can just take it as a phone call. Obviously, you won't see any of us and vice versa. But you can just join by phone if you can't get the video hook up to work.
Actually, what I think I'll do, my daughter and I Zoom every Sunday night, and you know, so I can see my grandchildren. So what I will probably do is ask her to instead of going on the computer, to try going on the phone, and maybe by then I will have learned.
Sounds good.
Hey, John, before we close, can I just review the actions that I had, at least based on the discussion we had?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I'm a stickler for this, but I just want to make sure we all know what we've agreed to at this point. So I'm going to send out a note regarding a potential meeting regarding the video. I'll send that to Jean and Amy and Jenna. And we can invite others. John O'Neill has asked to be involved in that as well, but I'll make people aware and we can decide how we want to manage that. So that's the first action. Second is I'm send an update on the newsletter. So folks that had input on that, Nora and I will work on the community forum piece. And then we'll get that, I'll get that cleaned up and out to everybody for review. Actually, Jean, can we do the same thing with that? That, you know, once we send that out, give folks a couple days to review it, and then if it's okay, let's get it out there. You know, I think it's just good to get it out over the summer. I will continue to push collecting site visit reports from those folks that may still be out there. And then the last one I had is I'll go back to the communication plan, try to update that. So those are the 4 I had on my side. Are there any others that I may have missed? I know I just heard Mark say he's got to go back to the potentially with the select board on Recalc Sunset, but that sounds like we're not fully ready to have that discussion yet because we haven't laid all the dates out. But that's all I had. Any other actions?
Yeah, I have a couple. I'm gonna see if I can get the notes from UMass, from the community forums. And I'm gonna be mindful that we want extra postcards so that we can plan ahead for that. Confirming that the age 18 and older residents, so that multiple postcards will go to one household, is okay. And that we're going to work on messaging so that the people who live in that household know you are to fill out each one separately, because we want to hear from all of you. I also have that the comments, once I have a draft survey in full form and in final form and a draft postcard, I will send it around with a hard deadline for committee members to get comments back.
Great, excellent.
Great. And can I add one more request that will lead to the future agenda items that John O'Neill, you took notes on? And that is, if each of us could take a look at the feasibility studies that are on the Recalc webpage. There's a link to feasibility studies that includes Andover and some others. I know this sounds a little bit early, but we should see kind of what to expect, what's included, and make sure that we're on a path to be able to give a charge that relates to that, and enough information to the select board, to town meeting, to whomever, to kind of inform that discussion. And so taking a look at it now, I think is a good idea to kind of get prepped. It'll help us think about timing.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
seeing anything else, so entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
And so Mark Doxer,
Yes.
John Sasso,
Yes.
Ron Assini,
Yes.
Nora Bucko,
Yes.
John Parsons,
Yes.
and John O'Neill, yes. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy the next month.
Thanks,
Good
folks.
evening, everyone.